Welcome to WebSpeed from $1 Digital Design Incorporated. My name is David Bailey. I am the creator of WebSpeed. And today we're going to be looking at requests at a section template that are used in HTML pages and in home pages in WebSpeed. There are different types of pages in WebSpeed, and one of the most common is this HTML page, which the home page is the same thing except for a few extra features that it has. But for the manage web page, which is where we manage the contents of the page, it is going to be the same thing whether it's a home page or an HTML page. And again, you can see what type of page it is right here in the top right corner. Whoop, not that. Top right corner of your account. Currently, we are looking at a sample template for WebSpeed. This one is something people play with and can tinker around with it. Right now, you'll notice that the content on this page is the white area, and there is really nothing in here right now except for 2 lines of text. The first, of course, is going to be the name of the company. The second one is going to be set in the page details tab of each page, and that's covered in another video, of course. Today, though, under the Manage Web Page, we're looking at, now we've already looked at the text header, section header text bold in another video. We're going to be looking at both of these next two, the text and image sections. And again, think of these sections as building blocks, one on top of the other, and we can create more sections, we can insert them, we can change the order, but all in all, that's how we build the content of our web pages. And we'll talk more about that in another video, but right now we're just going to look at some very basic things about these text/image sections. One of them has the text to the left and the image to the right. The other one has the image to the left and the text to the right. There really is no difference. Anything you do in one, this is a block of text, anything we do here, if we wanted to change to the other style, say we want to decide, no, I need that image on the left, we can change that anytime. You won't lose any of the settings, and you just preview this section. Now, this is one of the first times we've looked at preview this section. There are a few times to use it. You'll notice, though, that now the text is on the right, the image is on the left. So these two are actually quite interchangeable, and you can swap them back and forth. Now, these first three here, I've been building websites for nearly 2 decades, and these first three are building blocks that I use pretty much on every single website we built, and we've built hundreds of them. These first three are very important, of course. So now we're going to look at some of the other options here. I'm going to go ahead and just say this is a block of text, and you'll notice there's a browse here. The WebSpeed can handle JPEG images, and I'm just going to pick here's a photo of some trees that I'm going to use. And this space above here is not required. Actually, none of this is required. But this space is not required, but you can use it to put a label if you want to. And I'm going to go ahead and tell this to save this now. Now, the first thing to remember, I just uploaded a picture that's probably a few meg in size. And so if your connection is not ultra fast, it's going to take just a moment, and you'll see up here in the tab that it's still working on it, but you need to let it go and let it work on it until it's done. So we're going to wait just a moment here. Okay, for the sake of time, I edited out a little bit of video there. The image we selected happens to have been a 6 megabyte image, and it took a few minutes for it to upload on our sometimes slow satellite connection, but now you can see that it's here. The thing is, remember that sometimes larger images may take a little longer to upload. One important thing to keep in mind, though, you cannot upload images that are larger than about 10 megabytes. Now, that would be a pretty big JPEG image, but something to keep in mind as you're selecting images to upload. Also, WebSpeed in this particular section only handles JPEGs. Don't be expecting to be able to upload a PNG or a GIF or other types of files. Only JPEG images, which is common in most cameras these days. So anyway, the section has been added. And if I go to the web page, which you'll notice I've got up here in another tab, and we've talked about multi-tab browsing. When you use this link in the upper right-hand corner to go to the page, it should open up in a new tab or a new window. And that'll allow you to have WebSpeed open in one place and be able to switch over, see the website, check it how it looks, and then come back to WebSpeed and flip back and forth relatively easily. So here now we've gone to the web page, and of course remember that it doesn't show up right away. Remember what we're looking at here on the computer is a copy of the site, of the page as it looked when I first pulled up the page. So I go up and hit either refresh or reload. It's called both things. And when we do that, you'll notice that suddenly the image is here, that new little section is here. There's our text that says this is a block of text, and there's our little label at the top, and there's our image. Now these images, we can set the size of these, and we're going to look at that here in just a moment, but they're set so that if someone clicks on them, they will pop up in a new window, and I don't believe that is going to show on the video, but it opens in a different window, and then they close it and it comes back to, of course, this page. So let's look a little bit more. That's just the very basic use of this type of a section. We're going to look a little bit more at this type of section. We're going to click the edit here. And just for the fun of it, I'm going to change this to make the image on the other side. Maybe I decide I like the image on the right side, so I can go here, change the selection here, the template selection, and then go down here and say preview this section. And of course it comes back here, and now the image is on the right and the text is on the left. However, we've lost our image. That's peculiar. So the images don't carry back and forth, but the text does. So I'm going to go select a picture, hit the browse, and use your computer to find an image on your computer. And I'm going to pick a much smaller image this time. And now down here, you'll see there's something that says select image size. This says 250 medium. That's 250 pixels across. What that means is this image is 250 pixels on its largest dimension. If it's taller than it is wide, then the largest dimension would be 250 up and down. But this is 250 pixels left and right. If we decide we want that image to be a little bit larger or a little bit smaller, let's just make this 350 pixels, which is just a little bit wider. And we're going to, in fact, this time we're going to add a border color. Let's add a little line around this section, and we're going to make it, let's make it a little bit heavier line. That's 4 pixels. We can make these lines around it as wide or as narrow as we want to, or just don't use them at all. One thing to keep in mind is that when you're using borders and cell colors, be careful to keep the sections easy to read. It's kind of like laying out a brochure. You don't want to get too busy for the eyes so that people are comfortable reading it. A lot of different colored spaces and boxes and bright colors and everything else may be flashy, but you want someone to actually look at the content and take time to look at the page, and you want to draw them to it. So you'll notice I've made a couple of changes. You can now see that there's yellow lines around here. We go to the page, and remember, the first time we go to it, it's not going to show right now. We have to hit refresh, but now you can see what this section looks like, and there's the yellow line around this section. Now you'll notice there is a line in the middle. And that's because there's actually 2 cells here, a left cell with the text and the right cell that has the image. Now, one thing that of note here, the width of these cells will vary, and I'm going to go grab a block of text here real quick that we can just paste in here. And it's going to be more text in there, and yes, this is a nonsensical language. You can't read it. It's just some randomly created letters put together that look sort of like they could be read, but they're not. So we're sitting here, we see this, and you'll notice that this box right here where the text is, it's not all the way wide. It kind of looks a little off balance here. Once you get more text in here, though, this space will get evened out. And now you can see it looks a little better with real text in here and an image on the right. So the spacing is much better here now. If you've just got one line of text like we had in there, it's kind of up in the air as to what will happen. So I want to talk about very briefly this select white space. This select white space is the number of pixels from the yellow line to the content of the table. Right now, there's only 3 pixels between that letter M and the edge of the yellow line. So if I want to make a little bit more white space in there, maybe I want to make it 5 pixels instead, I can go over here, select 5 pixels for that white space, save changes now, and now watch very carefully where the M is and how close it is to the line, and also the image over here. You can see how close it is. See, there's just a little bit more space. And sometimes that little bit more space can just make a page a little more comfortable to look at. Also, we can go in here and change the color of the border to whatever we want to. Of course, the colors that are here on display are the colors that will match your color palette for your website. You can also select other colors. It's recommended that you stay with the colors you have in your palette most often, but it's understandable that you want to make something stand out a little bit more. We can also change the cell color. Now the cell color is where the white is here, but if you're going to change the cell color to a darker color, be sure that your text is going to be a lighter color. And that's something that is very important to the search engines. If your text and the color behind it are too close together, it's going to make it hard to read. And when it's hard to read like that, we start having problems with ADA, American Disabilities Act compliance, and actually search engines kind of frown upon that. And when the search engines frown upon things, that typically means your site is falling down on the search engine results. So be careful that there's a good contrast between the color of the text and the color of the background. Now this yellow on the blue is actually quite easy to read. If I go back over here and make the background this blue, and let's make the text this other color blue. Both very similar colors. You'll notice now, if you can read it at all, it's extremely hard to read. I can just barely see it on my computer screen. If I highlight, you can see there is text there, but this is extremely hard to read, and people will be hurting their eyes. Actually, people will not even be reading that. They're not going to take the time to figure that out. So be sure to make the contrast between the text and the background sufficient enough that people will be able to read it easily. Another thing here, let's make a thinner border here, and I'm going to make the cell color white, and let's change the text color back to the blue. We're going to reverse those two. Another thing we can select here, and this is the cell color, of course, that's what we already said. Another thing we can do is we can select the alignment of the text within this area right here where the text is. We can make it centerline, we can make it a larger text or a smaller text. We can make the text bold if we want to. And we go here, we click Save Changes, and only when you click Save Changes now will the changes appear on the website itself. So now you see the text is bolder. You'll also notice that it's center aligned. It's no longer left aligned, it's centered. And sometimes you have to adjust the amount of text that you have next to an image if you want that to fit better with your images and and the flow of the site. What I mean by that is we've already talked about duplicating. I'm just going to duplicate this section, and when we do that, it's going to create the exact same thing just below it. So I'm going to edit this one, and I'm going to swap this, make this right image left text. I'm sorry, left image right text. Preview changes, or preview this section. And because I changed the template, I have to select a new image. So I'm going to go select another image that's relatively small, and image size is still selected at 350. Everything else I'm going to leave the same and save changes now. And now you can see we actually have two sections, one with the image. Well, it's not done yet. Remember, when these images are uploading, you got to give it a minute to make sure to allow it some time to upload the complete image. This image is just a little under 1 megabyte, and I think my satellite connection may be a little bit slow, which is happens from time to time. Our connections get slow and fast on occasion, depending on the amount of traffic during the day, during that time of the day. And here we come. The image is as uploaded, and you'll see here there's an image on the right and an image on the left, and that actually helps the text to flow here, but you see there's a white space below this image. So one thing that we'll frequently do is go in here and make our text flow a little bit from one side to the other. So I'm going to remove the last two paragraphs here and save the changes. Now this time I'm not uploading an image, so it just does it immediately. And I'm going to go down here and leave the last two paragraphs. Save changes now. And now when I look at the web page, you'll see that we start to have a little bit of flow to the text on this page. A little bit of text on the left, a little bit of text on the right. But you know, whenever you've got text that's just centered, sometimes that makes it hard to read. People in the English language are generally used to reading things with a left align. And so we want to be sure to stick to what people are used to, because we don't want to make people work to read the text that you want on your website. If people are going to have to work hard to figure out what you're saying, it's going to be a reason that people will click off and go to another site. So be careful about your alignments. Make sure it is what people expect and what is easy to read. So now I've made both of those sections left align, and you'll see here that all the text is now left aligned, and it's easier to read even though you have no idea what it's saying. But the text is easier to look at. It's what we're used to seeing for just general text purposes. And the text kind of flows back and forth. Making text flow like this is one little thing we do to keep the reading interesting. Yeah, you don't want it to be completely like a straight highway, because people will fall asleep. So we make it a little bit zigzag back and forth, more like the German Autobahn, where it goes back and forth and keeps people more alert while they're driving. So that's just some very basic things about working with these text and image sections. We're going to talk a little bit more about more of these sections here. You'll notice somewhere in there I changed the border width to 0, and there is no border in there anymore. There is one other thing I want to do here. We're going to go back, and if you're actually in here and you decide you don't want to make any changes, you can always click on Manage Web Page at any time, and it will just leave everything that was done there and just take you back to this point. But we can take and say, okay, I want to add a new section here. We're going to use the same section this time because the last one had the image on the left. We're going to make the image on the right and kind of make that meander back and forth work a little better. I'm going to browse and find a nice small image that will not take very long to upload. And I want to show just very briefly the bullet list. Occasionally you just want a bullet list. And the way to do this is each time you have a bullet item, you just hit enter at the end of it and it makes a new line. So there's 3 features. I'm going to go ahead and make this bold, make the text color the same as all the other text color, and we're going to save this now. And once that is saved, then remember I'm uploading an image, so it's going to take just a moment to upload, and be sure to let it do its thing. Once the image is uploaded, of course, it's going to appear here, and you'll see now we have an image to the right, and now we actually have a bullet list over here. We can go to the web page and actually see what it looks like. Now remember, we haven't hit refresh or reload here. Always want to do that, and once we've done that, that bullet list is going to appear up on the left over here. One final thing I want to show in this video is down here at the bottom. Now, so far, this section is the full width of the white space in here on the web page. We don't always have to make it that wide. We can actually control the width of that section down here where it says select section width. And let's say we only want to make it 75% of that width. That means 75% of the distance from here to here, 3/4 of it. And we make that change, and we're only going to worry about center align right now. This is going to become important in another video. But for right now, select section width does have some very important uses. You'll notice now when we go to the web page, hit refresh or reload, now this section right in here is actually narrower than this section up here, this building block. So we can actually control the flow a little bit using these widths of the sections. And it is a little bit awkward if you make different widths of sections, but looking at this bullet list down here, we actually could use that to help manage the content of this particular section and make things line up a little bit better. I'm going to say 75% again. Save changes now. And there are other settings on here, and we'll be looking at those in other videos. But now that I've changed the width of this bottom section, watch how it fits a little bit better in the area. So the feature number 1, 2, and 3 are not way off here on the side. They're kind of a little bit tighter, but you don't want to get too tight, of course, because then you're going to run into other issues. And really, it's going to come down to a judgment, personal preference. How comfortable is it to read it? One thing to keep in mind, people that look at a piece of paper are expecting to see a little bit of a margin on the left side. So maybe this close to the edge, maybe a little bit uncomfortable to read. And something like that is completely up to personal preference. There really is no right way or wrong way for a lot of this. It's just a matter of look at it, read it, see how comfortable it is to read. Would you like to have seen something look a little bit different? If so, make those changes and then see how it looks. All of this is experimentation. We go back and forth and try different settings ourselves and see how things look and see how the text flows, et cetera, et cetera. We do this all the time. The big thing is just to be sure and go check it, make sure it looks right, make sure it looks comfortable to you, and make sure it's easy to read. Be sure to subscribe to the $100 Digital Design Incorporated YouTube channel for access to all the WebSpeed training videos available. Feel free to ask questions in the comments of our YouTube videos. This is David Bailey, and I will talk to you in the next video lesson.